Well, we're back for yet another video. I keep making these for some reason. Anyway, today we've got a few things to do. Namely, some big foil packets arrived. And these are S&D LEDs on a silicon strip. In case you don't know, the museum I volunteer for is going to be adjacent to the same airfield where there's going to be an air show. In fact, the main entrance is going to be bum up against it. So they've asked me to get some lighting happening for the cabinets. Now previously we did have LED lighting, but it got damaged and relocated and whatnot when we moved some cabinets around. In addition to that, there is a light and sound show that I designed some years ago that I also have to rework to work in with all of this. But primarily we need some LED strips, and I've only got a couple of weeks to go. And Easter holidays and school holidays have started, so it's going to get complicated. So today we're doing a relatively simple job of getting some LEDs prepped. In amongst that, I've got some of these, some nice aluminium strips with diffusers on them, and some little mounting brackets. And I kind of went a little overboard. I got a whole heap of them. And I got 100 meters of cable. And I got 10 meters of LEDs. So we've got an interesting afternoon or evening ahead of us. So the idea is to get a meter of this, stick it onto this, and then move on. And we've got 10 of these to work with. So let's get chopping and soldering. Now these strips are adhesive backed. And before we do much else, we need to test how much current they're pulling. Now I'm using similar LED strips to light my desk, and we can see from here they're pulling about 0.3 of an amp. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to my little distribution box here that is off my solar battery bank, and we're going to put a couple of these clips in here, and we're going to see how much this 5 meter reel of LEDs pulls, and we'll do a little bit of maths. So remember that 0.3 maybe 0.4 amps. Let's put this on. So now we're pulling about 2.3 2.4 amps. So we can say fairly realistically that we're going to pull 2 amps per 5 meters, which is crazy low voltage. I come from an era when the only option for torch lights, I think the best one was a Krypton or a Xenon torch globe, and one globe would draw as much as that. And now I've got dozens of these things in way less current. Anyway, let's get a bit of this stripping out of the packet and see how we go. Okay, they included these little clips too, which I assume you can screw down and clip this channel into. It's nice. Oh, and there is actually a diffuser on the top. You can see the reflection from some of the LEDs above that are running on my desk. I won't look up at that with the camera because it's where I keep all my business cards, and you don't really want to see all of them. Okay, we'll get that out, and oh, it does slide out very easily. That's nice. Let's pull all that out, and it's obviously polycarbonate because it's slightly flexible. Here's our open channel. Ditch the diffuser off to the side a little bit, and this being aluminium channel will help with the heat dissipation just a tiny bit. Alright, so let's change our camera angle. We're going to measure out how much fits in here and chop it off, and these can be cut at these little markers here. I'm not sure how I'm going to end up soldering to it through the silicon, but we'll find a way. I might even consult somebody else on YouTube that has worked with these before. Typically I deal with the ones without the silicon coating, but you know what, we'll see what we can do. Now luckily I happen to have a 1 meter marker already marked onto my desk, and that is exactly as long as this channel. So I need to go probably one section shorter. So about that many, which you can't see off camera, but I have marked it. Now I'm not sure whether to use scissors or flush cutters, but I'm going to go with what I'm accustomed to using. That works stunningly well. Okay, there's our strip. Let's stick it on. Now there's a voice of experience here that tells me I should start at one end and adhere just a little bit at a time. So that's what we're going to do. Although this glue strip, this double-sided tape, is a little tricky when you're dealing with the heat shrink end of it, because the heat shrink doesn't stick to it as well as it should. we'll get this tape backing off and then we'll show you what we're up to. Okay, so after a moderate level of frustration, I'm going to start at this end first, because I have a feeling that this will behave somewhat better. And I had to choose today as the day to trim my fingernails, because for all the tools I have, sometimes only a fingernail will do. See if we can pick this up. And these are perhaps not the correct tweezers for this task, but nonetheless it looks like they might do. Once you get this started, that's pretty decent. Alright, this fits this channel nicely. We're going to come in a little bit to allow room for that plug. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to push and slide this paper backing or wax paper backing as we stick each section down. So we're just going to work our way along. And I'm pretty sure at this point you get the idea, so we'll be back once I've done this whole length. Alright, we have our completed length. So in this situation, I'm going to pull a cap out of this end and swap it into the other end, and that will allow me to run the wires out of there. In fact, I may even go so far as to utilize that little cable hole that's in the end here. In any case, that should work pretty well. And we have our other plug on this end, which has no hole. We'll find out how to make that work. We need to slide our cover back in, and then we'll test run it. Here's our cover to go back in. That should slide in nicely. Now this is where I'm going to run into the problem at the other end, where I need to pull that plug out and thread it through the hole. So let's do that. So we have the religious cap out, and by that I mean the hole, or the holy cap. Wow, I am struggling with my jokes today. And that should actually go that way up, for reasons that will become obvious. So that should go in there. And we push our top up to that, flip ends, and put our other section in here. Now some of these I am going to daisy chain, but for this one, this is my test run, I'm going to put it like that. Now these are going to sit face down on top of glass topped cabinets. Anyway, let's see how we go in terms of current draw. Now I am pulling a couple of amps here, so we're going to turn off the incandescent globes. Here is an interesting fact for you. So I'm running about a meter of LED strip above, and this doesn't even pull 100 milliamps because I'm wound them down a little bit. If I put on just the incandescent globes that are in here plus one single section of LEDs in here, that's nearly half an amp already. So we want an accurate measure of how much 1 meter is going to draw. So let's do that. Put you on here. We will do you on here, and wow, that is bright. And we're pulling, okay, about 0.8 amps. That's not quite what I had measured before, but still, that's pretty good. And I'm going to have 100 amps at my disposal. I've got a 100 amp continuous power supply. I will demo that when I'm doing the setup. Anyway, that is going to be a nice, actually really nice setup for LEDs, and very directional. I think that's going to work well. So I've got 9 more of these to make. The only thing I'm going to have a bit of trouble with is connecting to the bit where I've chopped it. So let's have a play with that. So here's my reel of LEDs. It's strange how unapologetically rough I've got with LED strips over the years. Let's see if we can peel a bit of this back like so. This could be a bit of a nightmare to try and solder to, but we'll see how we go. You know, if it's that easy, I'm going to be very happy. Where are we? Here we go. Now, some blue tack to the rescue, and we need a soldering iron that will get hot. We'll put them both on because my old Weller has been having some thermal switch issues. So I'll fire them both up and see who gets hot first. Alright, so it looks like the Chinese soldering station is probably the first one up to temp. But yes, that is because we have to fix the other one. Let's turn on our brand new extraction fan that is whisper quiet compared to the old one. The old one used to be quite noisy. Can we solder to this through the residue of that silicon? This is going to be why I don't like these ones, I'll bet you. Right. Yeah, that silicon is making soldering to those pads a bit of a nightmare, but nonetheless, we have been able to tin those contacts. Balling up a little bit, but I see that being a point of unreliability, but we'll try and solder some wire to it and see what happens. We will unwrap some of our 100-meter roll off camera here, behind the camera. It's been wrapped up with glad wrap, so it's going to take a few minutes. Well, that roll of cable was wrapped up better than some videos I've seen on parts of the internet you probably shouldn't go to. Anyway, let's get this separated out, and we want them nice and flush. We want a little bit of copper exposed on each one. At least this is red and black instead of white and slightly less white trace. We will pull them into line before we solder them on. This is actually pretty hefty cable actually. He's my local J-car dealer who actually has given us a bit of a discount because he favours the museum. I will put a link to his store below if you are interested in purchasing stuff from that shop. And that soldering station has turned off again, so we'll turn it back on. Gotta wait for it to warm up. Alright, soldering iron is hot again. Let's see, this iron is a bit shagged. Give it a bit of a clean. The tip has broken off this one. I will find probably a chisel tip for this later. I was using this for the micro stuff and my good old ancient Weller for the bigger stuff, but the Weller might have actually finally done its time. But find out later on. Let's get our strip here, which is our positive and negative. Looks like positive rail along the top, which is the bottom in the view that you're looking at. Let's see if we can solder you on. Darling, you've soldered on perfectly. Not sure if I triggered anybody there, but it's what I do to diffuse the anxiety about having my soldering made public when it's not perfectly good. That damn soldering station has turned off again. That's why I don't like the Chinese one. It's got a really short timeout. Alright, well anyway, proof of concept, we can solder to that, and to be honest, whilst it's not exactly central, it is nonetheless firmly soldered. So I might chop another meter off this and put it in another channel. And then we'll have 8 more to go. Alright, number 2 is done. We've got this nicely positioned in that end. And this end, you probably wouldn't know that I'd misaligned one of those things. Anyway, I had to chop the slot out a little bit to take this slightly larger cable, but other than that, it looks good. So, we're going to do the rest off camera, and then we're going to test all of them at once and see what happens.
3 hours later.
Alright, it's now the busy time in the house, so there will be some background noise. But we have 10 meters of LED stripping. Looks good. Now I did test these as I soldered each connection on, except for these guys. I've used the tips on the pre-attached cable on the roll of LED strip. I've got them fairly consistently positioned, again, except for these two that were the roll ends. So, yep, we've got all these in. I've tested them all with the probes over here, but now we're going to hook them all up, all on the cables, run them all at once, and see how the physics has changed. Because you do get voltage drop with these, and running a 5-meter roll from the end of it doesn't tend to be indicative of how much current it's going to pull when you run them in parallel like this. So let's get them all wired up and see how much current it really draws. Alright, it is test time. We'll be watching this gauge over the back here in the blue, and we are connected to our test panel in a slightly interesting way. Going to turn off our desk lights, and hopefully we should get something right. Let's see if we blow a fuse. No, but we've got lots of light, and we're apparently drawing about 3.1 amps. And wow, this is lighting my entire office. Doing really well. But some good lights. I'm going to take a quick photo. Alright, so we're doing pretty well. We're going to turn this off. I'm feeling for slightly warm on that lead actually, because that one is attached to this makeshift connection here. And so these leads are getting a little bit on the warm side. We might turn that off back to the crazy yellow light and change back to the cold color temperature. Everything is a mess at the moment. My floor is covered in stuff, so we've got a bit of stuff to clean up, but these are done at least, and I've stuck 2 meters on each one of them. I've got probably about another 80 meters of cable down there, so we should be pretty good, and we'll have to get these installed in the museum. But for now, this is all I wanted to cover. I've got so much to do, so I'm going to chop this up into shorter videos for the next couple of weeks until this air show. I already have 3 or 4 videos waiting to be edited. I haven't had the time to sit down and edit them and upload them, so I'll probably be sticking with my 2-day schedule for a video, but hopefully it keeps you guys interested. So let's keep going, and I hope it was an interesting one, and we'll have some more for you soon.